The city pulsed with life as neon signs flickered against the midnight sky, and the air buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Among the crowd was a young businessman celebrating a major success with his colleagues. The deal they had closed all but ensured their promotions, and the sake flowed endlessly in their honor. As the night stretched on, the businessman's attention drifted to a woman sitting alone at the far end of the bar. She was striking, long jet-black hair cascading over her shoulders, her figure wrapped in elegant white clothing. A simple surgical mask covered the lower half of her face, a common sight in Japan, especially during flu season. Feeling bold from the alcohol, he sauntered over and took the seat beside her. He bought her a drink, though she never touched it. Instead, she sat in silence as he boasted about his success, his words slurring slightly as he talked about the bright future ahead of him. Then she leaned in slightly, her voice soft yet chilling. "Why don't we go somewhere quieter? I know a place." The businessman grinned. "Lead the way." They walked down a dimly lit alley, the sounds of the city fading behind them. The woman suddenly stopped and turned to him, her dark eyes locking onto his. "Am I beautiful?" she asked, her voice muffled behind the mask. The businessman chuckled, finding the question odd, but harmless. "Of course you are, very beautiful." The woman tilted her head slightly. "Am I still beautiful?" she asked again. Before he could respond, she reached behind her head and untied the mask. The fabric fluttered to the ground, revealing her face. Her mouth was torn from ear to ear, a jagged, gaping wound that formed a monstrous, distorted grin. The businessman stumbled backward, his stomach twisting in terror. Then she pulled out a gleaming blade. Some say a knife, others a large pair of scissors. The last thing he saw was the glint of metal before he turned to run. He was never seen again. Many dismissed his disappearance as another late-night misadventure gone wrong. But the older generations whispered a different truth, a truth rooted in a centuries-old curse. Long ago, during the Edo period, there lived a samurai whose wife was renowned for her breathtaking beauty. Wherever she went, men turned their heads, entranced by her delicate features. But what was admiration to others became torment to her husband. The samurai's love curdled into something dark, poisoned by jealousy. He convinced himself that her beauty had drawn the attention of other lovers, that she was deceiving him behind his back. The suspicion festered, growing into something unbearable. One evening, as she returned home, he confronted her with cold fury. His hand tightened around the hilt of his katana. "Tell me, who have you been with?" he demanded. Tears welled in her eyes as she pleaded her innocence. But the samurai did not listen. In one swift motion, he slashed his sword across her face. Blood splattered across the floor as a horrifying wound stretched from ear to ear, splitting her once perfect mouth into a grotesque, permanent grin. "Who will think you are beautiful now?" he spat, before turning his back on her. Some say she died instantly, her spirit leaving her body with a wail of agony. Others claim she lived long enough to see her reflection, her final moments filled with horror as she gazed upon her own disfigurement. But death was not the end. Her rage and sorrow bound her to the mortal world, and she returned as an onryō, a vengeful ghost, cursed to wander forever. She hides her face behind a mask, a sleeve, a fan. She stalks the streets searching for unsuspecting victims, always asking the same question, "Am I beautiful?" If the answer is no, she kills without hesitation. If the answer is yes, she removes her mask and asks again. Those who scream or recoil in terror meet a swift, bloody end. Only the cleverest escape, answering with riddles or confusion, distracting her just long enough to flee. But she never stops hunting. Even now, in the dead of night, Beneath the glow of flickering street lamps, you may hear the soft rustle of fabric and the whisper of a muffled voice. Am I beautiful?